Look, I've been here for just over a week. This will be the third game that I've been to in a week. Hopefully the third win as well. It's a pleasure to be back here again, to see lots of familiar faces and not so familiar faces. I nearly didn't recognise young Phil Hipworth there. He had long hair back in the day. But, it's good to be back here to see lots of familiar faces and friends, for sure.
Trevor, when you ran out here, when it was just the old school stadium, and there was, I think where we stand right now, there was just the, we used to keep all of the speedway equipment, tractors and all sorts over here. Would you have liked to have played in the summer? What was it like playing back in the winter back in those days?
For every rugby player that's sitting in this room, we all know how tough and hard it was playing in the winter. That's where we earned our money, for sure. I would have loved to have played summer rugby. It would have been different. I don't know how the old knees would have coped with the hard grounds. Well, actually not so hard grounds. But a different concept, right? Different concept. It was a lot tougher back then. You know from the first season you had here. But it's great to see actually, playing summer rugby. Unfortunately it coincides at the same time as the Down Under, Sydney Rugby League and NRL, but I think, obviously watching the last couple of games, and I do watch the Bulls TV every week with all the games that are going on, and it seems that the supporters enjoy it a lot more than probably the rugby players themselves.
I can remember one of those very early games that I played for Bradford Northern right back in the day. That was when you only had 2 subs, and there was no interchange. You couldn't keep coming on and off the field, so you were lucky if you actually got on the field in the first place. But back in those days, the 13 players were expected to play the full 80 minutes. But the game, when we started off the game, they had the covers on. They took the covers off, and throughout the game, the ground started getting more crispier and crispier and harder. And the game kind of descended into a game of touch and pass for both teams, and I couldn't understand it. If I'd never played on frozen ground before, never. You know, like in the summer when it's rock hard and you fall on a clump of dirt, it turns to dust. But in the winter, it's like a shard of glass, isn't it? Yeah. And everyone's kind of just, there's no real grind going on. Anyway, I think we get an injury, and Peter sends me on. I go onto the field and I go my first run, and I go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I skid across the surface of the ground. I leave half my legs on the ground, and I got up and I went, that's why we're playing this game like that. I get it, I see. So I joined in the big game of touch and pass we were playing also. Trevor, what have you been doing? Obviously, I think you finished your career off here at Bradford, and then you went down under, started working in the sport back down there. Tell us a little bit about the last sort of 20 years of your journey.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I did retire from playing my last game here for Bradford in 1995. I think we played Leeds, but I think we beat them.
Everyone beats Leeds at Headingley.
Yeah, 20 years have flown by, for sure. I was fortunate enough when I played rugby league over here, I got a free education. I don't know what that's like these days. But I went to Carnegie College, I studied. I was at uni for 6 years. I came away with an honours degree and a master's degree in sport and exercise science. So I went straight into a career of teaching at university. So I've been really fortunate to be still involved with sport, playing, coaching, training, and now teaching sport. So I teach I'm in charge of a degree in sport coaching. So I've been obviously blessed in that regard. And it's good to see the young players themselves coming through the grades, having a career to go to, getting either an apprenticeship, as young Phil told me, or going to uni and getting education, because that's the key. It's a short career, as all the ex-players here would know. It's a short career. You've got to make the most of it while you can, and find a career pathway afterwards. Obviously, you've got into comedian work, yeah, and you're doing pretty well. And a small snapshot, Mitch was born here. I've got photos of when he was a young baby. We used to carry him up the hill there. All those who remember the old club rooms up behind the grandstand there was the porta-comp at the time. That was it, that's all we had. And this part here was all just a grass hill. So those are good days because we actually had a really good side back then, Peter. I should thank Peter Fox, by the way. If it wasn't for Peter Fox, I wouldn't have the career that I did in the UK. I was with him at Leeds, 85, 86, 87, then he took me to Featherstone, so I had another 4 years at Featherstone, and then he brought me here to Bradford for another 3 years at Bradford, so I owe a lot to Peter Fox. He's a pretty simple aspect of coaching with Peter. You just did exactly what he told you. And if you did any more, that was a bonus. But first and foremost, you did exactly what he told you, and you guarantee he'd be pleased with your efforts. So, one other thing, Robbie, I've just finished a PhD, which has taken me the last 4.5, 5 years, and I was so glad to get that noose around my neck off because it took a major undertaking of my time, and yeah, looking forward to the next 20 years.
The Doctor. So as you understand the development of the game, the work-rest relationship that you've got to get right as an athlete, obviously sports science. If you flog the players too much, obviously you're not going to get the best out of them come Sunday afternoon. So when you were doing that work at Leeds Carnegie, and you had guys like myself and young Joe Simpson, and you were flogging us every single Friday afternoon, that probably wasn't the recipe for success.
I just said, don't tell Peter.
You signed up a raft of us young players, because this is when everyone's heard of the supplement creatine. So it's used throughout professional sports now. That was when it was first coming to the market over here, and you guys were testing it. What was the finding of those tests? Did we improve? What was the finding?
Yeah, it's interesting because Brian Mack was actually part of that study as well.
The sucker group. It was called the sucker group.
Yeah, well, they were good, young, keen players. They just wanted to help me out. So, in fact, I did a couple of experiments. Unfortunately, Peter's here now, so he knows. On the playing group, and they all consented to be involved in my studies. And the one Robbie talks about is interesting because, yes, I had to flog them in training to see what effect the creatine monohydrate actually had on their training system. And Robbie didn't know this, but he will now. He was actually on the placebo. I couldn't tell him at the time, but yeah, Robbie actually got better at this. You all know, look at the career he's had, fantastic career. He was always destined to make it, there's no doubt about that. But probably the fittest, one of the fittest kids I've ever met playing the game. Could run around. There's an old joke about E.T., remember E.T.? He could turn the light off and be in bed before it was dark. Well, this kid here obviously could do a lot of things and keep doing them, which was a massive difference in the game. And some of the players that he talked about, we had here at Bradford at the time, and Brian Mack was one of them. He could just knock down walls and keep going. Carl Fairbank's another one. Roy Bell was another one. These are blokes that could just keep going all day. So I had to learn a little bit about the science around rugby league. Thankfully today I've built up a lot of expertise in the area in rugby league in terms of concussion, training, so on and so forth. So I'm loving it, man. Loving it. It's just an extension of playing, basically.
And finally, let's move on to your son. Mitch, they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I know, growing up, my harshest critic growing up was my old man. Are you one of those fathers that put your arm around your son and say, everything will be all right, son, or you, like my old man was, just boot up the backside?
For a start, it's hard to reach, Mitch. Look, he's his own man. He's been driven his whole life, that kid. The main thing that amazes me is he still loves the game. He has such a passion for the game. You'd think some kids that have been around their whole lives get sick of the game, but he's just grown a real passion for the game and developed his own sense of what he wants to do and what he wants to achieve. And as far as I'm concerned, he's a better player than I ever was, that's for sure. What he's achieved in the game, and he's still only a young kid, but yep, there's lots of options there for him, and I'm just wrapped. I give him feedback, obviously. He doesn't sort of listen straight away, but he eventually gets it. But it's hard to tell a young, big, strapping lad like him what to do because he's got his own mind, and that's positive. But don't worry, he's got plenty of harsh critics at home in New Zealand. Every time he does something wrong, they all jump on the wagon, and every time he does something right, they're all part of the wagon. So that's all part and parcel of growing up playing sport. But it's a pleasure to be here, to watch him again today here playing for Bradford.
The last. I'll just finish up by saying the last two games you've seen Mitch play, we've won. You might be our good luck charm. You might not be going back down under anytime soon, mate. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Trevor Clark. All right, so we've got the